Hi everyone, and welcome to our Masterclass Q&A 3. We are very, very happy to be here and to host you. We are going to be taking all of your questions. You've watched so many lessons of our Masterclass now, so we know you've got them. Thank you so much for sending them in our Masterclass group on the post that I've been adding. It's been so great to see them. I'm Lisa Shirley, Community Manager for Formula Botanica, and I am here with the lovely Brooke and Lorraine. Lorraine, if you'd like to say hi.
Hi everyone, it's so good to see you here. I can see the numbers climbing, whether you're watching us live or on the replay. I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm thrilled that you're taking part in the masterclass. I presume you've probably seen me on some of your videos, and I'd love to know who's formulating along. Come and tell me in the chat because I want to hear all about it. So I run Formula Botanica, which you should already know if you're watching the masterclass, because I think I've told you many times in the videos themselves. There are quite a few of us here behind the scenes. There's about 45 of us, and we're on a mission to teach the world to formulate. We've had almost 20,000 students go through our doors in 191 countries, and we love teaching these masterclasses because they're amazing and because they help you get started formulating too. So I'm looking forward to all your questions today.
We do. There's a real energy behind it. And obviously behind that energy, we have an even bigger education team working really hard on these masterclasses and putting all of this together for you. And that is where Brooke comes in. So Brooke, if you'd like to say hi and just let everyone know a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. Hi everyone, my name is Brooke Medhurst and I'm the formulation tutor at Formula Botanica. So I work as part of our fantastic education team, creating these masterclasses for you, and we also work on creating the content for all of your courses and for the lab and all of the exciting things that go on behind the scenes at Formula Botanica. As part of the education team, we also work on grading our students' projects and making sure that our students have the best possible experience going through our courses as they possibly can. And I love seeing all of the formulations you've been putting up in the chat. So let me know if you've been creating them as we go. Are you going to formulate once we get to the end of the masterclass? And how are you finding your formulation if you've made it so far?
Great. So we've been talking about formulations. If you're new and you've just come across this video, we have been teaching thousands of people around the world to make their very own botanical eye cream. And it is going amazingly, as Lorraine is expertly modeling right there. So if you are new, please just go to wherever you're watching this video. There'll be a link in the chat and you'll be able to get your ticket for the masterclass. And you have till October the 17th to watch the video. Still plenty of time to get your ingredients, still plenty of time to take part. We have people taking part at all different times. As long as you have time just to watch the videos up until October 17th, you are involved in the masterclass and you can make your very own formulation right now. We have a ton of people saying they're not sure they can do it, and we prove that you can because we have thousands of people that can do it after taking our masterclass. And the proof is in our exclusive Facebook group. If you're not a member of that, I suggest you go and join it. You can as soon as you get your ticket. We have tons of people in there posting their cream up today, right now, and that could be you. So why we're here. So this is our third Q&A. We've already done 2, which you can catch up on. And at this point, people have been making their emulsion, adding botanicals and creating their face cream. And we know loads of you have questions. Speaking of which, just want to do a few shout outs to people. We've got people from Minnesota, Luxembourg, Virginia. I'm always jealous of all these lovely countries. Kenya, France, Austin, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. We always get such an eclectic global mix, and that is what we love because we love having a global community of formulators. That is what we're really, really, really proud of. So as we go through, if you do have a question for us, just pop it in the chat and I'll see if Lorraine can answer it for you. And let's get started. Okay.
Let's do this. I'm looking forward to hearing all these questions.
To the top. We always have so many in this one, so we're going to try and get through them as quick as we can. Okay, first question is from James. James says, can we use any essential oil in this formulation? Brooke, what would we say?
So you can use some essential oil in your eye cream if you really want to. We would recommend you only use a really small amount if you're going to, because your eye area is really delicate, so no more than 0.5%. For the eye cream that we've designed it with rose hydrosol, which is really lovely and fragrant, so you get that nice scent to it and you don't really need the essential oil in it. But if you absolutely want to add one, it is possible. You just need to make sure you're in line with your dermal limits and it all sits around all of the restrictions that you need to keep an eye on, but we go over all of that in more depth in our courses.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brooke. Okay. So Creation X says, should certain preservatives be used in different formulations? How do I know which? Lorraine, what would we suggest?
Yes, different preservatives often need to be used for different formulations. How you know which one it is requires you to learn how to create your own formulation. So in the masterclass, you're obviously learning how to make this eye cream. You're following our recipe effectively. And where we want to get you is that you can customize this, which is obviously why we teach lesson 8 and 9 as well in your masterclass, which I hope you've all watched. And then we want you to be able to learn how to create your own formulation from scratch. And at that point, you become a formulator. And that's obviously where we're trying to get you from the masterclass. So the next step after the masterclass is really learning how to work with natural preservatives. And there are different flow charts that we teach where when you use certain ingredients, you have to think of certain different preserving compounds that fit best with that. That's like the next step on in terms of your formulation journey. So if you want to learn how to do this, I would recommend come and enroll with us because that really does go way beyond the masterclass, where at the moment we're just showing you how to make this eye cream. But we've got you covered if you want to learn it. We teach this to our students all over the world.
We have everything covered. And speaking of having everything covered, we offered a little something extra with this masterclass. So I'm going to bring up this next question. Okay, so I bought the masterclass course, but I'm still watching the free class. Will I be able to see the VIP course? So we added a VIP option to this masterclass. Lorraine, could you just give us a little overview into what the VIP is and what it entails?
So every time we teach something for free like this, I mean, there's currently 45,000 people taking part in this masterclass. It's enormous. And those people all want to learn how to formulate this eye cream. But there's a cohort of you guys watching, and it's probably all of you guys watching this actually, who are real action takers and who have 1,001 questions that go way beyond what we're teaching in this masterclass. So that's why we created this VIP option where you buy a VIP ticket. Obviously, if you're in the masterclass, it's free, you've got it all. But if you want to go over and above everything, that's where we have a VIP ticket. So we have various mini courses in there and extra downloads and ingredient profiles and all sorts of goodies for you. And it's only 37 British pounds. So it's an absolute bargain for what you get. Once the masterclass is finished, there will be a limited time period of access to the VIP materials, which will go, I think, until January 1st. So
Yeah,
we've got some time.
Yeah, extra time to get involved in those goodies. And the feedback we've been getting from this VIP course is amazing. The VIP section is amazing. People are absolutely loving it this year. So yeah, please do take advantage of it if you can. Eliziani is in the comments, so she's going to add that link for us. So please do not worry. Okay. And I can see comments actually from people saying they haven't got their ingredients yet. Please do not worry. People always worry about that. And I tell them, do not. As soon as you get them, you can just get involved.
And honestly, even if you don't get the ingredients, it's no big deal. I mean, just follow along and see for yourself that you can do this. Because honestly, you'll watch me do it and you'll believe that you can do it too, because you can. It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. From S. Grays, who says, should we use certain whisks for different batch sizes or does it not matter? Brooke, what do we think? If someone's going a bit bigger.
That's a very good question. So I think it would depend on the kind of batch size that you are making, because if you're making, for example, the 50 grams that we're making in the masterclass, a little mini whisk is absolutely perfect because you don't have a huge batch that you need to whisk up. If you want to go way above that and you want to make maybe even a kilo of your eye cream and you want to gift it to everybody you know, you're probably going to want a bit of a bigger whisk to get through all of that eye cream. But for the majority of the formulations that you're going to be making, especially as you're a beginner, a mini whisk is perfectly good to be using. I would say up until about 300 ml, then you might start to struggle to incorporate everything, but nobody uses 300 ml of eye cream in any one go unless you're gifting it. So absolutely a mini whisk is perfectly fine to start with.
Great, thank you. So Sylvia Walsh asks, can we sell this eye cream just as it is? Lorraine, what would we advise people if they just want to go out and start creating their own products?
Well, the eye cream that you're following was one that we made. So no, I wouldn't recommend that you go out and sell it because obviously this is one that we're teaching you to make. But more than that, even if you took it and you tweaked something, you can't just sort of bottle it and go out to market to sell it. This is obviously why we've also put all the VIP goodies together, which talks about this a little bit more. So you have to go through something called stability testing to make sure that the formulation is stable, because even though it's stable on our side, we need to make sure it's stable on your side, because you have different manufacturing conditions. You might have used different batches of ingredients, have different suppliers. You also, as it contains water, need to undergo something called microbial challenge testing, where you send the product off to a lab, and the lab basically goes, yes, the preservative system works for you. And then depending on where you are in the world, you have to get certain paperwork in place. It really isn't as hard as it sounds, and it's super simple. We've watched thousands and thousands of our graduates go through these steps really easily, and we teach all of this in our courses. So if you are thinking this is an eye cream that I could make my own, first of all, I would always recommend that you try and make it your own rather than just following a recipe and bottling it and going for it. We're obviously trying to get you to formulate with us and then create your own formulations. Then, explore what the options are for you and how you could do this. And we have the program that will teach you to do this, which is the next step after the masterclass.
We do. And keep an eye on your emails, because you'll be getting information about that as we drip feed it from now. And there's so much to tell you, but it gets really exciting. So just please watch out for our communications on that and jump into the group as well. And you'll be hearing all about our program and our graduates who have taken it. Okay. Next question. Brooke, one for you. So how long is the shelf life of this product after we formulate? From Fitria.
Good question. So for the eye cream, as we've made it in the masterclass, we say you're going to have about 4 to 6 months. And this is because, as Lorraine said, we don't know the manufacturing process that you've gone through, your unique conditions. So things like temperature and your lab conditions will have an effect on the amount of a shelf life you have, but because the product is preserved, you should easily get between 4 to 6 months of good use out of it. It should be long enough for you to use up the whole 50-gram batch, no problem at all, if you're using it every day. If you, for example, didn't use a preservative in there, you would only have a shelf life of perhaps about a week. So that preservative does extend that shelf life quite far.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Fitria has actually sneaked in there with another question, so we'll go to Lorraine for this one. How do I consider the type of packaging, for instance, glass bottles or plastic bottles, as a container for our formulation? We've been seeing people do all sorts of things. So is there one answer, or is there more than one, Lorraine?
There are many different answers. First of all, it depends on what formulation you're making. In our case, we're making an eye cream, so you want to try and keep air away from it as much as possible, and you only want to dispense a tiny little bit. So you probably wouldn't put that in, say, a wide neck jar. I've got one here which has a balm in it that one of our graduates made. Can't open it at the moment. So you'd want some kind of bottle that can dispense it. There are obviously plastic bottles, there are glass bottles, there are aluminium bottles. There are many different options. In fact, I think there's even a video on this in the VIP section if you want to delve into that. But the most important thing is, you have to first of all make sure that the formulation is stable in the packaging that you choose. You have to make sure that it's safe in the packaging that you choose, and you have to make sure that it meets your own criteria. For instance, some of our students don't want to work with plastic because they want to work with glass, which is possibly easier to recycle, or they do want to work with plastic and then they want to make refillable formulations. So it depends a little bit on what you're trying to create as well. But in the case of a water containing formulation, you want to try and keep air away from it as much as possible. So there are many different options for that, which is very exciting. Go and have a look in our graduate gallery, because you'll see so many different examples there.
And speaking of following more information, Basant says, hi, I'm from Egypt, glad to learn from you. How to know the weight by myself and concentration needed without following recipes? We don't use the word recipe here, we use the word formula because we teach formulas. And to mention, I'm an engineer, not pharmacist. So this is obviously someone that is basically saying, how do I create a formula myself? Lorraine, what would we suggest?
Well, you need to learn how to become a formulator. So that's, if you've watched the masterclass, then hopefully you've watched us formulate the eye cream. You might have even followed along. And by the time you get to episode 8, that's where all the questions that come in around what other ingredients can I use are answered. I've seen a couple already in the chat here even. I can't use this ingredient. Which one can I use? And you learn how to do that by becoming a formulator. And we obviously teach all of this in our courses as well. So what I really want you to think about is, how could you maybe start to substitute ingredients? How can you confidently start to work with ingredients that you haven't worked with before? How would you feel about creating something from scratch once you know how to make an emulsion? How could you make your own emulsion? And once you start thinking about that, that really is the sort of trigger point for you to become a formulator. I wouldn't necessarily go and follow recipes on the internet. There's a lot of really scary and sketchy stuff out there. I've seen them. I've tried some of them. They separate. They're not safe. There's all sorts of rubbish out there on the internet. And that's obviously part of the reason why we teach this masterclass as well, to help show you the safe and stable and sensible way of creating a formulation that works.
And we do have a fantastic blog section as well. If people helping in the comments could add that as well. So go and check that out, because there's so many things you can actually search for and start your formulation journey that way. So please do look out for that. Okay, so Janice asks, how do you eliminate soaping in an emulsion? So if someone's made an emulsion for this masterclass, it's a little bit soapy, what would we say? Brooke?
So soapiness is something that you do find with Olive M in particular, which is the emulsifier we've used in this masterclass. It's a little bit tricky to fix sometimes because it's all around the ratios of between your oil and your emulsifier. So this is something we cover a lot more in depth in our courses because it's a little bit more chemistry based. If you are experiencing soaping and it's something you want to reduce down, you could try including things like maybe upping the emulsifier percentage or upping and including some co-emulsifiers as well. But it can get a little bit complicated around understanding exactly what is causing the soaping, because there's a few different things that it could be. So you have to sort of troubleshoot and come to a conclusion of what it is that's exactly causing your soaping. If you wanted to try a different emulsifier, a lot of emulsifiers do have less of a tendency to cause soaping effects. Olive M1000 is particularly known for it, but we chose Olive M1000 in particular because it is so easy to use and because it is available everywhere. But trying other emulsifiers and maybe, start experimenting and finding what works for you.
Great, that's the name of the game, experimenting, going there, seeing what works, keeping the thing you think didn't work and then comparing it, and you will find your way. I just want to flag up this comment from Tamika. It says, I'm loving this masterclass. Thank you so much, Tamika. That is exactly why we're here. And I also have a comment here from Nikki, who says, I'm still waiting for my kit. I just don't want to lose out on this opportunity. I'm behind in the class. I don't want to miss out. You are not behind. You're right on time. You have time to watch the lessons, get involved, make your own botanical eye cream. Do not worry. The most important thing is just watching the lessons as they become available and making as many notes as you can and just being involved. Get involved in the exclusive Facebook group we have, and you can make your cream a little bit later. So don't worry. We have people making it all over the place. So you are right on time. Do not worry. And how many lessons have you actually seen? If you could add in the comments, that'd be really interesting to know. We've got, I think, 9. What day is it?
Yep.
9 lessons now available. So 1 to 9, let me know in the comments. And there's no wrong answer. If the answer's 1, that's okay. We just want to know what the answer is. Okay. Next question. So Jane says, I ended up with an ice cream that is just a little too thick. How do I make it thinner? Brooke.
Wow, you're already starting to get ideas about how you want to change it, and this is fantastic. This is a really good way of starting learning to formulate. So with making it thinner, this is something where you would have to tweak again a little bit of the ratios around the cream. So the way we made it for this masterclass was to give it a nice thin, relatively thin texture so that it could come out of a pump bottle, but it's not as thin as something like a serum, for example. So you could try, if you want to make it thicker, increasing the emulsifier. You could try adding in things like shea butter or cocoa butter or some co-emulsifiers to give it a lovely thick, richer texture. There's lots and lots of ingredients that you can try playing around with in order to thicken it up. You could also include some thickeners like xanthan gum, for example. That would be a great option to add in to change up the texture and the skin feel. And this is where you start experimenting a lot with your products and changing up the texture and making the skin feel exactly what you want. So it's a fantastic place to start.
Great, fantastic, Brooke. And speaking of substitutes and people thinking ahead, it's kind of a big question, but let's see if we can tackle it. So congratulations. Can I substitute rose, helichrysum, peppermint, or lavender for cucumber glycerite in this formula? What would we say, Brooke?
Yes, you can. So if you have a glycerite with helichrysum, rose, peppermint, or lavender, then absolutely you can swap it. You want to make sure that when you are swapping those ingredients like for like, before you sort of understand how to design your own formulation, if you haven't studied with us yet and you don't know how to build out your formulation by yourself, it's really important that you swap your ingredients like for like. So if you're taking your cucumber glycerite, for example, you want to swap it with another glycerite-based extract. But there are so many of them available that you could use rose, helichrysum, peppermint, pomegranate. There's so many of them available. I couldn't list them all off the top of my head, but yeah, absolutely. You can do that with any of the ingredients. So you could swap your jojoba oil for almond oil or apricot oil. You could swap your hydrosols for maybe lavender or tea tree hydrosol. Depends on what you would like to use and what kind of scent profile you want your eye cream to have.
I can see a lot of people asking, can they substitute things in the chat? The answer is mainly yes, but really you have to just kind of do a little bit of research into it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like cucumber and you like rose, yes, you can substitute it. It's fine. It's just a formula that we created. So experiment, go and have fun with it. Okay, next question. So Sue asks, can you make cucumber glycerate, Lorraine?
Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can. In fact, we even have a blog post on our website about it. I mean, we tend to work with glycerites in these masterclasses and also in our courses because it's a lovely way of infusing plants into your formulation. So if you think about it, a plant, like I have a herb garden outside my office here. Imagine you've got lavender growing in your garden. Many of us do around the world. If you extract that lavender into oil, then you'll extract those oil-soluble compounds, which I talked about in lesson 4. If you extract it into glycerite, then you'll typically extract more of those sort of water-based compounds. So it's a really nice way of getting different components of the plant into your formulation. And there are many formulators who make their own glycerites, and they can be brightly colored as well. Because, for instance, if you infuse fresh fruits into them, like raspberries or strawberries, they can go bright red as well, which can then add a color to your formulation. So play around with it. Go and read that blog post. I'm sure the team will share it in the chat in a minute, and go and have fun with it and experiment.
Great.
By the way, can I just say, I've seen all the numbers.
I was just about to say, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's amazing to see how many people have actually watched 8 or 9. And as Lisa said, even if you're just starting out, it's awesome that you're here. Dive in while you can, because these episodes are only 10 minutes a day. Everyone can do this. Everyone has 10 minutes a day. My days are super, super busy as well. I have a very busy job with Formula Botanica. I have a busy family. I can find 10 minutes too. You can too. So make sure you dive in and catch up. And if you're catching up on everything now, just carve out an hour and a half and watch everything in one go. Just binge watch it. It's amazing. You're going to love it.
Absolutely. In that time you might be watching Netflix, just watch our videos instead and consider it like your own little Netflix formulation series.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, speaking of glycerites, Becky says, I'm having a hard time locating glycerites. If you don't want to make them, what could someone use instead, Brooke? Or can they?
They can, yeah. So the easiest swap for that would be just to use straight glycerin. So you can find glycerin in lots of places. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on lots of suppliers' websites. It's a really sort of easy to find ingredient. And if you're really stuck for it, you can usually find it in your supermarkets and food shops as well, because it's used in cooking too. So yeah, you can swap it for glycerin, because glycerin is a fantastic humectant, which means that it's really good for moisturizing the skin and adding in some nice moisture. The glycerin on its own will still have that benefit. All you would lose is the added benefits that you get from your cucumber. So the glycerin on its own is a good option, and it's probably the easiest one to do a direct swap with if you don't want glycerites in particular.
Great, fantastic. Okay. Priel, I think that's how you pronounce that name, says, how do I sterilize the cosmetic containers, especially the thin ones? Brooke, I'll go to you because I know you love a bit of sterilization.
So the easiest way, it would depend a little bit on the kind of container you have. So if you have a different material, sometimes you would possibly want to bake them or boil them. But the easiest way of doing it is to use your alcohol spray. So get a little spray bottle or a little, even if it's just a little container of alcohol. You can use rubbing alcohol, or you can get isopropyl alcohol or ethanol and dilute it yourself to 70% dilution. And spray it in there, shake it around a bit, pour it back out, let it evaporate off, and that will kill anything that you don't want lurking in your creams from your containers.
Fabulous, thank you. And I can see a few people asking different things about the lessons for the masterclass and the VIP. So, Lorraine, Sarah has a question. How long will these episodes be available for? So, for two things.
Yeah, the whole masterclass ends on October 17th. So the last lesson comes out tomorrow. So as of tomorrow, you'll have been able to watch a lesson a day. So 10 lessons, 10 minutes a day. Everyone's got this. And then they'll be available for one more week after that. And in that week, we also open up enrollment for our big International Organic Skincare Entrepreneur Program, which is our flagship program, which takes you from complete beginner to formulator, certified formulator, innovator, and organic skincare entrepreneur. So if you've loved what you've seen in the masterclass, that's your next step. And that closes for enrollment on October 17th. So next week, Tuesday at this time, basically. And then all the masterclass gets taken offline as well, because we can't teach this all the time, all year round. Make the most of it while you can. You would not believe how much effort this is and how everyone in the team is involved. It's a huge undertaking. As I said, 45,000 people in here. So everything will be taken offline on October 17th. Apart from for VIP ticket holders, they have an extra 3 months access to the VIP materials until January 1st.
Exactly. And speaking of just maximizing your time, we have a webinar that we will be doing tomorrow, myself, Lorraine, and our colleague Anna, which is tomorrow, 6 p.m. UK time. So look out for your emails, register for the masterclass. Look out for that link, because you are going to want to join that webinar. If you're joining this Q&A now, it's because you have questions and interest about formulation. So if you really want to get maximum value, we have put on such an amazing webinar for you tomorrow. You don't see things like that on the internet, and especially not giving it away for free like we are tomorrow. So it's tomorrow, 6 p.m. Wednesday, UK time. Please join us for that. I will try and remember most of the names on this thing, and I'll give you a little shout out if I see you've joined our webinar tomorrow. That'd be amazing. Okay, so Jelena asks, I appreciate you providing every piece of information. Thank you, Jelena. I'd like to know where I can sell my product after I've formulated it, and how do I find a contact to help me do it? That's a big question, Jelena. I'm from the US. So what would we advise? We have a course that can help someone with this, Lorraine. What would we advise Jelena do?
So follow episode 9 and 10. 9 is available as of today. Lesson 10 will be available tomorrow. I want you to start thinking about how you make your formulation and then turn that into a business. And at that point, you need to start thinking about compliance. We teach all of that. You need to start thinking about branding. You need to start thinking about marketing, about how you manufacture your formulations, how you set up a small lab at home and make sure that's good manufacturing practice compliant, how you make sure that you've financed your brand properly, which doesn't have to cost much, by the way. Most of our graduates do this on a shoestring budget. And there are various checks and balances that you have to go through. So we actually have a whole business diploma that walks you through everything step by step. I like to call it our Indie Beauty MBA. It is extensive. It's a really big course, and we've only had raving, amazing feedback about it because people love it so much. And what I will say is we released this course in 2019, and when we did, we had so many of our graduates come to us and go, oh my God, I wish you'd had this 10 years earlier, because it would have just saved me so much heartache and time and money. So it is your shortcut to getting your products to market, which is why, of course, it's in the entrepreneur program that we open enrollment for tomorrow morning. It's going to be really exciting because we're going to be welcoming hundreds and hundreds of new students into the Formula Botanica community. So if you want to sell your product, there are many places you can sell. Your own website, you can go through retailers, you can go to market stalls, you can go to many different places. And as for a contact to help you do it, I think you can do it, Jelena. You're here in the masterclass. You're taking part. Formulate something and then see for yourself how simple it is. And the next stage is really to get your business set up. How exciting.
Absolutely. And I do, good answer. And I do appreciate people might have questions about the program. So please do go onto our website, have a look at that. I'm sure Eliziani can drop a link so you can have a look at our program. But if you do have any extra questions, you can always email us. We always have open communication. We have the answers, but I promise you, any question you have in your mind now, we have been asked it before. So just send us an email at hello@formulabotanica.com, and our team who are working around the clock will get back to you ASAP. Please don't worry. Okay. Sure, the answer is yes to this question, but we'll try it. Brooke, so Mary says, I would like to use my pure hemp seed oil extracted by me for my formulation. Can I use it as an antioxidant or maybe as a substitute for the jojoba oil? Thank you.
Of course. So hemp, the fact that you can extract your own hemp seed oil is fantastic. That's really impressive. Well done. So I wouldn't use it as an antioxidant because we only really have two main forms of natural antioxidants. That's your vitamin E or your tocopherol and your rosemary CO2, because those are the ones that are strongest in those pure antioxidants that have been extracted from other oils. But absolutely, as a substitute for your jojoba oil, I think hemp seed oil would be fantastic. That would be a really great addition to an eye cream. So have a swap, give it a go and see what you think. It will probably give it a lovely green colour as well.
It will. And keep your first one, Mary. If you do more than one, keep whatever you've made and do a little comparison, because that is the way you learn as a formulator. Okay, another one for you, Brooke. So Diane says, I got rosehip oil, virgin organic, rosamhita. So that being said, do we have to do something different than what was shown in the lesson, or will it work just the same? What do we say to Diane?
So if you've got the inky name there, Diane, so that's fantastic. You've probably got your plain rosehip carrier oil, which is fine. You can just swap that in the masterclass, we use Rosehip CO2 extract, which is extracted a little bit differently. So it has a slightly different chemical profile, but they are very similar, and you can swap your carrier oil for it for the same amounts, because that's perfectly fine. The carrier oil can be used at higher amounts, so you can swap it in for your extract, no problem at all.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, Sana, I'm going to raise this question because we did just talk about the business course. Sana says, I can't do marketing. Please help me. Lorraine, how do we help Sana?
You absolutely can do marketing. Don't look at it and think that it's some kind of dark art. Marketing is really about just getting people to connect with you and buying into you and your story. And everyone has that in them. You know, when I first started out, it was just me with Formula Botanica. And, you know, I made sure that I connected with people. I just talked to people and I showed them how passionate I was about things. And that's really what marketing comes down to. It's about creating the experience and value around the product that you make, which in your case would likely be skincare. So don't feel too daunted by it. You can do this. I think there's this real stigma out there about marketing and sales being this big, scary thing. And it's not. It's absolutely achievable, but you just have to be authentically yourself and put yourself out there.
Absolutely. Coming back to you again, Lorraine, for this one. Can you recommend global wholesale suppliers? So what is the difference between what we've recommended to people in our masterclass compared to what we recommend to our students?
Well, you've started with, well, if you're in the masterclass, and I hope you are, if you're not, go sign up. 45,000 people in there. You don't want to be missing out on your free ticket. We provide a short supplier list with suppliers who we think are amazing. Huge shout out to them. They are fantastic. They're all around the world, and they provide really small kits for you to formulate along with. And you can either buy from those suppliers once you start to create your own formulations afterwards, once you decide to become a formulator and hopefully come and enroll with us to take that next step and take your masterclass education further. But if you want to eventually scale up and go bigger, I mean, we have graduates who are producing over 1 million units of skincare a year. They're not buying in teeny tiny quantities anymore. They are working with very large suppliers. And at that point, we do have a global supplier guide with over 400 suppliers in it. Most of those will supply really small amounts, but if you want to scale up, some of those suppliers can do that too. In fact, there's an amazing supplier here in the UK who does our starter kit. They can provide essential oils in teeny tiny quantities, but they can also provide them in giant vats. So it really, it depends on how big you want to go, but anything's possible. And yes, we do recommend many of them.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, and just thank you, by the way, I can see the chat going through. Thank you to everyone saying they love the masterclass. They're watching the lessons. I am seeing those comments come through, so thank you so much. And please do not worry if you haven't started yet. I can still see people saying that they only up to a certain point. Do not worry. You're all in the right place, no matter what lesson you've seen to make your botanical eye cream. Everyone watching this, you're already ahead of the game. You can definitely do it. Please do not worry. Okay, from Teresa. What form of botanical is best when adding to formulations? Powder, tincture, glycerite, or hydrosol? Brooke, is there a winner?
It depends on what kind of product you want to make, I suppose. This is a big question, and it's something that every formulator struggles to answer, and it's something you answer based on each individual product. So depending on what you want to make, depends on what kind of extract you want to add in, depending on what kind of ingredients you want to use will depend on what kind of extract is best for that ingredient. So there's so much information we could go into with this, but there is no winner in particular for any one situation. They are all fantastic in their own rights. They're all fantastic in their own ways. And it's just a case of understanding what ways those are and how to get the most out of them. And that's where you go from becoming someone that follows recipes on the internet to becoming your own botanical formulator.
And if I can just add to that, one really cool thing that you could think about is imagine that you get really inspired by a plant. So I love chamomile, for instance, and you want to infuse as much of a plant as possible into a formulation. You could, for instance, say, I'm going to include the chamomile hydrosol. I'm going to infuse an oil with chamomile. I'm going to have a chamomile tincture. I'm going to make a chamomile glycerite. And at that point, you're extracting all these different chemical compounds from the plant and almost creating like a whole plant formulation. That's very geeky. I love that sort of thing. You don't have to do that, but it's a nice idea in order to really infuse the properties of the plants that you're most inspired by.
Amazing.
I love that idea.
Okay, question from Serena. So hi, I want to know the difference between rosehip CO2 extract and rosehip essential oil. So obviously we mentioned both kind of in our Q&As. What would we say, Brooke?
So the main difference between these two is how they are extracted. So rosehip, there isn't such thing as a rosehip essential oil. I think you mean rosehip carrier oil, because rosehip essential oil is not one that is on the list. It's not something that rosehip produces. But if we take rosehip CO2 extract and rosehip carrier oil is extracted by cold pressing the seeds and the fruit of rosehip, whereas rosehip CO2 extract is produced by a process called CO2 extraction, as the name suggests. So they come out with different compounds. They're a little bit different in their sort of botanical profiles and makeup and the benefits they have, but they do, because they're both oil soluble, they do have similar compounds. They're quite close, but there's subtle differences in them. So for example, I found that a lot of the rosehip CO2 extracts I have a slightly stronger color than the carrier oil because it is pressed and extracted in a slightly more, what's the word, condensed way, I suppose is possibly a way of putting it. But yeah, so they have their subtle differences, but you can swap the two of them. You could use rosehip carrier oil instead of your CO2 extract. You couldn't use CO2 extract, for example, as at higher amounts like you could do with your rosehip carrier oil. So that is where your carrier oil has the strength of being able to use more of it in your eye cream, but the rosehip CO2 extract in some respects would be classified as stronger. So it's about understanding the differences and seeing which one works best in which situation.
Great, thank you, Brooke. So I can see a lot of people thinking about selling this eye cream. We've obviously got loads of people who are thinking about maybe starting a brand here or, you know, creating something for themselves, because we have a question from Safio says, could you please share from where to get compliance certifications of such an eye cream? So Lorraine, what would we suggest? You know, it's a big question, but
It is. It depends where you are in the world. So, for instance, if you're in the US, which is where many of our viewers are, compliance isn't quite as strict as it would be in somewhere like India, for instance. So it depends entirely on where you are in the world. But typically, the checklists are pretty similar. You have to make sure your eye cream is stable. You have to make sure it's safely preserved. You have to make sure that you have all the right paperwork in place. You have to make sure that you've complied with good manufacturing practices. We cover a lot of this in high level terms in the masterclass, and we go more in depth later on in our courses, obviously, if you want to continue with your formulation education. And I very much encourage you to do so because I know how it can change lives. So it depends a little bit on where you are. Here in Europe, I was about to say the EU, but of course the UK left. I won't turn this into my rant. We go through registered safety assessors. So we work with chemists who are pharmacists, people who can sign off on your paperwork, basically, it's a useful process because often they can work with you on things like dermal limits, etc. They don't work with your formulation. They don't make your formulation, but they sort of stamp your paperwork. But it depends a little bit on where you are in the world. But we cover all of this in our courses.
Yeah, it's too big a some of these are too big questions really to get into detail here, but we will do our best. Okay, question from Diane. Says, hello, I grow rose hips in my garden. Well done, Diane. I would like to know if I can use the hips in some way. So, Brooke, how do we relate it to this formulation and just kind of in general?
I think if you've got rose hips in your garden, I suppose you could have a go at extracting the oil, but I think that would probably be quite difficult on a small sort of homemade kind of scale. But a rosehip glycerite would be a really beautiful thing to add into this formulation. So you could swap your cucumber glycerite, for example, for a rosehip glycerite. And as Lorraine was talking about earlier, you could make a whole rose themed eye cream with a rosehip glycerite and infuse it in some glycerin. That would be great. Just making sure as you look through, you can prepare your rose hips right. And we've got a blog post on all about making glycerites. If there's something you want to look into, you could try making tinctures, or maybe even there's a way of making an infusion with it too, with some macerated oils, or an infusion to use as instead of a hydrosol as well in water. So there's lots of different options, and it depends on what kind of things you want to add.
There's loads and loads of options out there, and Helen is thinking about other options because she asks, do you suggest using carrot seed oil in the eye cream? How many drops?
So there's two kinds of carrot seed oil.
Two things we need to cover there.
Two things, yeah, two separate questions. I'll do them in two halves. So carrot seed oil, there's two different kinds of carrot seed oil, so it depends a little bit on which kind you're talking about. So you can get carrot seed essential oil, in which case I possibly wouldn't recommend putting that one in an eye cream, because in my personal experience, that's quite strong, especially for around the eyes. So as I was saying earlier, you'd only want to have a very small amount of essential oils in an eye cream, and because carrot essential oil can be quite strong, it might be a little bit much for around the eye area, even if it's in just a small amount. But you do also have carrot seed macerated oil, which is where you've taken something like sunflower seed oil, for example, and you macerate carrots into it. That would be a fantastic alternative to either possibly the jojoba oil, but you wouldn't want to heat it, so ignore me on that one. It would be better for the rosehip. But yeah, so you could swap it for the rosehip extract there, no problem at all. Second half of the question around the drops, we wouldn't recommend you weigh anything out in drops, and I do believe we covered this a little bit in the masterclass in the lesson, so go back and have a look at those. But we recommend that you use a scales whenever you're formulating to make sure that you get the most accurate amount possible, because when you have weighing things out in drops, whether it's from your dropper that you have your essential oil in, or maybe a pipette, or even if you're using measuring cups, for example, those are all volumetric measurements which measure the physical volume of your ingredient. They are not nearly as consistent as your weight measurements, which measures the mass of your ingredient. So we would always recommend you use scales to give you the most accurate amount, because otherwise you can find yourself, if you, for example, used 5 drops of carrot seed oil and then 5 drops of lavender seed oil, they might, for example, have completely different amounts in terms of weight. So we do have a whole blog post on this, and it's a rant that I could talk about for a while to cover why we can't do it. But we would definitely recommend you make sure that you use scales for it.
Fabulous, thank you. And speaking of going on, we could go on forever. There could be so many questions, but we'll probably go on for about 15 minutes or so. So we'll be here for about an hour. So if you do have a question, try and drop it. I know that we have people working in the comments trying to answer as much as possible, but we will be here. So just please drop your question out and we'll hopefully get it. If you've just joined us, this is our third Q&A. It's our part of our masterclass series where we teach everyone to make their very own botanical eye cream. So if you're here and you're in love with formulation, first of all, you're in the right place. And secondly, just jump in now from wherever you're watching. There'll be a link in the comments below where you can get involved with the masterclass, get involved with all the free goodies that we are offering, and make your very own botanical eye cream. And I want to see it in our exclusive Facebook group as well. Okay. Just lost my question there. We had a question from Stacy who asks, can you speak on the difference between the entrepreneur program and the diploma? Lorraine, what's the difference?
So tomorrow we open up enrollment for our International Organic Skincare Entrepreneur Program, which is our flagship program. It contains 5 different courses, and those courses take you from complete beginner to certified formulator to innovator and to entrepreneur. So really, they hold your hand every step of the way in teaching you how to formulate, how to make those formulations more advanced, and how to innovate in your formulations, how to make your formulations stable, how to make sure they're safely preserved, and then how to turn your formulations into a business, much like all the products you can see behind me, which have been sent to me from graduates all over the world. Now, that's our complete program. It's a flagship program. It's our most popular program because most people come to us with a dream of starting their own business. The Diploma in Organic Skincare Formulation is one of the courses in that program. So many people like to start with that one when it is open for enrollment. It isn't at the moment, and it won't be either for the foreseeable future. And they then upgrade to the entrepreneur program. But as of tomorrow, the entrepreneur program is open. So if you have a dream of becoming a formulator after you've taken part in this masterclass and you want to start your own business, this is the program for you. This is where every single one of our graduates started, because they took a free masterclass just like you. They made their first formulations or watched us make formulations and believed that they could do it. And then they enrolled and then they were off. And you can formulate your future, which is so incredibly inspiring. So if you're thinking of starting a business, that is the program you need, because if you only take the diploma, then you won't have all of the business skills in there as well that you need. And you certainly won't go into those really sort of more advanced skills that you get in our advanced courses.
Exactly. And this really is just the start. That's why it's such an exciting and great place to be, because it's the start of just a formulation adventure, we like to say. So yeah, you are in for a treat. Okay. Lots of people are still asking this, Lorraine. So quick answer on this one. Can we download the classes to watch at a later date?
Nope. They are available until October 17th, and that is it. If you're a VIP ticket holder, then your VIP content will be available until January 1st, so you get a little bit longer on that. But the masterclass itself will be disappearing in 1 week exactly, which is also when we close enrollment next week. So we open enrollment tomorrow, we close enrollment next week, Tuesday on the 17th of October. And at that point, the masterclass will be gone. We cannot keep this up all year round. It is an enormous undertaking. Plus, we have to get the show on the road teaching all the students who are going to come and enroll with us in the coming week.
Fantastic. Okay, question from Clara, who is not a fan of soy. Hi there, can you please answer the alternative to preservatives for next masterclass Q&A? I've a soy allergy and as such avoid soy candles and anything derived from soy in your masterclass. What would we say to Clara?
So we do cover alternatives to preservatives in lesson 8, I believe it is, of the masterclass. If you haven't watched that one yet, Clara, go back and have a look at that. It covers lots of different alternatives to preservatives. Off the top of my head, I don't know any components in the preservative that contains soy that would have any issues around having a soy allergy, so you should be fine with preservative eco in particular. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that contains soy, so you should be okay. So that's a bit of a relief. There's nothing other than soybean oil that I think you would be able to have to maybe avoid. But other than that, you should be fine on the soy front. But yes, have a look at lesson 8 and have a look at our recommendations for other preservatives if you need a bit more detail.
Great, thank you, Brooke. And I just want to flag this comment, Lorraine, from Stacey that's come back to us and said, okay, thank you, entrepreneur program it is.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to meet you, Stacey, and hopefully I'll be sat here with your formulations pretty soon. And I'm super excited for you because I know how much this can change your life. And I don't say this lightly. I say this because I've seen it time and time again. Let me just show you one thing real quick. So here on the floor, next to my desk, because it's too big to fit on my desk, I have all these folders filled with letters and postcards that I've been sent from graduates who've sent me these handwritten notes to just say thank you. Formula Botanica has changed my life. And this is incredible. This is humbling to see. So if you want proof that the courses work, they're in these folders.
Great, thank you, Lorraine. Okay, next question. So Karen asks, I would like to know the difference between a herbal infused oil and a botanical extract. Thinking of experimenting with the eye cream. So Karen's obviously thinking of branching out. What's kind of more of a simplistic answer we can give to this?
So it's fantastic that you're thinking of branching out, Karen. That's really great news. A herbal infused oil is where it's otherwise known as a macerated oil. So there's a few different names for it, but it's where you take a herb and essentially infuse it in a different carrier oil. This could be jojoba oil, almond oil, grapeseed oil, sunflower oil is a really common one. So there's lots of different oils that they then use to macerate herbs within them. So really common ones are things like calendula, chamomile, lavender. All of that dry plant matter is then infused into a different carrier oil. and you get all of that oil-based extracts, and all of the oil-based botanical components then transfer into your base oil. A botanical extract, there's lots of different kinds of botanical extracts. There's water-based botanical extracts like glycerites. You've got your CO2 extracts. Your herbal infused oils do count as botanical extracts as well. So that's a really broad topic of ingredients, because it covers a lot of different kinds of ingredients. So there's a few differences between them. But one of the best ways of looking at this is once you become a formulator, you start researching your different ingredients, and we do cover all the different kinds of ingredients in our courses. We do teach you what a foundation ingredient is, what a botanical ingredient is, what different kinds of extracts are good for. All of it is covered in our courses, and we also have this really fantastic ingredient directory, which covers, I believe it's almost like 275 pages of different ingredients that our students get access
we have an
to.
example.
And Lorraine's got it printed out. It's massive. So there's so many different kinds of botanical extracts and ingredients that you can have a look at and play with. I couldn't possibly cover all of them, but we do cover a lot of them in our courses. So if it is something you want to start playing around with, I would definitely recommend having a look at the Entrepreneur Program.
Yeah, and we call it differences, but really it's you will find so many different things in there that you'll fall in love with that you didn't expect. We have people joining thinking, I'm going to fall in love with this, or I'm going to learn how to make this, and then they discover hydrosols, they discover something completely new and start falling in love with that, and that happens every single time, and it gets addictive, as Lorraine will attest.
It does.
Yes, and I actually printed this ingredients directory out. This is something only students get. It's something in the student library that every student receives. It's over 250 pages, and I kept looking at it in PDF format going, I wonder what that feels like in my hand. So I sent it off to be printed, and it is enormous, and it's just filled with all these different profiles. So when you enroll with us, this is the Bible, basically. This is where you start.
Amazing. And speaking of starting, Sahia asks, so thank you for the great information. You're welcome. Please share more valuable information. I am waiting. I think they mean that in the good way. So in terms of information, Lorraine, not just the courses, but what kind of, we have our blog, obviously, we have our podcast. What kind of information can people get started with if they want to learn more?
Well, we're on a mission to teach the world to formulate. So practically everything we do is information based. So as Lisa said, we have an amazing blog. It has, I think, close to 600 articles on it. We've been writing on there for a decade, and it's just got this incredible wealth of information, and we publish at least an article a week, so go and check that out. Secondly, I host the Green Beauty Conversations podcast, which is for Formula Botanica, and in that I explore more sort of innovative concepts around sustainability and look at really innovative things that the industry is doing. For instance, this week, at the moment, the latest episode is all about a really innovative seaweed-based emulsifier. I interviewed a company they're based in the US, but are also down in Puerto Rico, and they're harvesting this sargassum, this seaweed bloom, and turning it into an emulsifier. Amazing. So go and subscribe to that as well. And just follow us on all the platforms, because we're constantly sharing information. But obviously, if you really want to learn to formulate, we have the courses for you. And this masterclass was really just a teeny tiny snippet of what's in our courses. And you can see how comprehensive that was, because we've walked you through every step you need to make your own botanical eye cream. But now, if you've got the formulation bug, the next stage is to become a certified formulator and to learn maybe even how to make and sell your own formulations. And we've got the courses for that, and we open them tomorrow for enrollment.
Amazing, fantastic. And a little shout out to Tanuke, who says, I've watched all of Able 9 lessons. Well done. Thank you so much. That's awesome. The reason why we are here.
Yes.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions. I think we're going to wrap it up. So let's go through these. Question from Via. Lovely name. So, hi, will using Rosehip oil, I think they mean, make this cream oily or not? Brooke, would it make it oily?
Not particularly, because rosehip in itself is quite a nice light oil, so it doesn't have a thick, greasy feel to it like some oils do. If you, for example, maybe use castor oil instead of rosehip, that might give you a bit more of a thick, oily, goopy kind of texture, because castor oil is a really heavy oil. But rosehip is quite a nice light one, which is part of why we chose it for this eye cream. Same with jojoba oil, it's a nice light one. So because there's not a huge amount of oil in the eye cream, because it's an oil and water emulsion, the type of emulsion that we've made here, does have the majority of it water-based. It is quite a nice light cream on the skin. It's not too oily. It's a nice sort of blend in the middle. So no, using Rosehip is not going to make you any oily or greasy at all.
Fantastic. Okay, question from Basant says, if we want to maximize the production, we start with small weight and then double it. I think they're asking. So if someone just wants to make 4, 8, 12, as it goes on, do they just keep doubling?
You can keep doubling it because it depends on the formula you have. You need to know your percentage calculations for your formulation. So for the Masterclass cream, we've done all of that for you, and we've just given you the final weights that you need to be able to make the products. When you're making your own batches, you would need to have your percentage formulation broken down, and then you can make as big a batches as you want. Because the weight conversion we have is 50 grams, you could double it, for example, to make 100 grams, but it's going to be a lot more work to just keep doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling. So it's easier then to work with your percentage breakdowns instead.
And what I would say, Brooke is absolutely right, but there will be an upper limit to that. Much like if you took a cake recipe and you kept doubling it, at some point the cake's not going to be stable anymore. And it's the same with an eye cream. But at that point, you're talking about really big batches. So if you just want to make, slightly more than you're doing it, then yes, exactly what Brooke says. Once you go into sort of industrial production, then yes, you'll need to tweak the recipes or the formulation slightly.
Great. Okay. 2 questions to go. So, Brooke, could you please advise how you adjust the pH? It's sometimes too low, too high. This person is obviously a little bit confused, as they say. What kind of tip would we give them?
So pH adjustment is something that is quite daunting when you first start with it. I know it was something that took me a little bit of a time to get used to, but once you do get the hang of it, it is quite simple. So I would definitely recommend starting with pH strips rather than a pH meter. If you've got a pH meter, that's great, but they are a little bit harder to work with because it will depend on the kind of pH meter you have. Some pH meters, you can dunk them directly in your cream to measure your pH. Some pH meters would need diluting, and you would need to ask your manufacturer what sort of technical specifications that pH meter has. But for the most part, it's much easier just to get pH strips. And we want to try and get pH strips that are in 1 to 0.5 intervals, which gives us the most accurate measurement we can. So once you've got the correct tools for measuring your pH, if you then want to adjust it, you're going to need something called a pH adjuster. And these come in a few different forms. You're going to need either an acid, something like citric acid or lactic acid. There's lots of different concentrations you can get for this, and there's a whole document on this in our courses of all about how to go into creating your pH adjusters. Going up, you're going to need something like sodium bicarbonate or L-arginine to adjust them, and all of your suppliers will have these ingredients. You're going to need some solutions. You're going to need to then drop in a little bit of that solution, give it a bit of a mix, and then test your pH again. But we cover this all in depth to teach our students how to do this in the courses.
Yeah, there's a theme here. Like a lot of these questions are great because you're excited about formulation, you're thinking about the next step, but we can only do our best so much in a Q&A. You really have to take an education to get the answer and really become a formulator, to be quite honest. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You're just at a really good place where you are now if you've just discovered formulation and you're looking at what you should do next. You're all here for a reason. And speaking of which, our last question, Lorraine, I'm going to come to you. So do you preserve your product any different if you're planning on selling it? From Moonshine, great name. We've got so many people obviously asking questions about this, selling it, doing something with it, doing something with the product they made. So they're obviously thinking about doing something extra, a next step. So what would we advise?
Well, the eye cream that we've made in the masterclass should be safe to use and to sell. However, what I will say is when I make it in the Formula Botanical Lab, like you saw in the masterclass, I have different manufacturing conditions and different ingredients and different batches and different suppliers to when you make it. And that's why all of us, whenever we sell a formulation that's based on water, have to make sure that it's properly tested and that it passes its safety test. So that is very easy. You can do that globally. There are labs all around the world who will do that for you. It is literally just a stamp, hopefully, if it all goes to plan. If it doesn't work, then you go back to the drawing board and you try a different preservative, but it's all very, very achievable. But I'm really excited that you're thinking about selling your formulations. This is where we want you to get, because the global beauty industry, they have this stronghold on the formulations that we buy and that we use all the time. And we can do better than that. And we've seen that with so many indie beauty brands. We've seen that with so many of our graduates. So I'm incredibly excited for you, Moonshine, because I know how much this could change your life. And I really don't say this lightly. I say this because I've seen this thousands of times with the graduates who've gone through our courses. They get the formulation bug, hopefully like all of you have, and then they make their first batches and they think, oh, this is good. And then they think, I could sell this. And then before you know it, you're off the mark and you're a beauty entrepreneur. And that is incredibly empowering. So I'm excited for you.
Exactly. And I can see so many people asking about quantities. Organic Bella is asking about percentages. We have someone else asking about another preservative. Can they use this? We could be here for hours and hours and hours, but really I want everyone here to join our webinar tomorrow, which is going to be 6 p.m. at UK time. Just find the link wherever you're watching this, sign up to the masterclass. We will send all the details about joining the webinar, so do not worry about that, because you're clearly asking for extra information because you want to get that extra value, and we are going to be offering that tomorrow. So please do join our webinar. You've started the journey, take it to that next level. See it through to the end. You've got 9 lessons to watch up to this point. Tomorrow you'll have 10 lessons. You would have completed the masterclass. And I want to see all of your creams in our exclusive Facebook group, because that is the great part of it, actually seeing what you have created at home and just proving to you that you can do it. And we take joy in seeing the joy of you making your cream as well. Anything you'd like to add, Lorraine?
Yeah, loads. I'm just so excited for everyone here. I mean, you've had this amazing free masterclass. You've still got a lesson to go tomorrow. And I just know how much this means to people, because we've been teaching masterclasses like this for many, many years, in fact, for over a decade. And every time, and this time is no different, we're just love bombed from around the world, from people going, wow, you gave me all of this for free. And you taught me how to make my own eye cream. And I made it myself, or you made me believe that I could do it. And I really hope that that's where you are right now too. And as Lisa said, tomorrow we've got this huge free webinar. It's going to be live. I'm going to be there with Lisa and with our education manager, Anna, and we're going to be running through the blueprint that all of our graduates followed to become an organic skincare entrepreneur. And I'm going to be running through 3 secrets as well that you need to know in order to become a formulator and an entrepreneur. And again, it's completely and totally free. Now, if you've taken part in this masterclass and you're feeling inspired and you can see the next steps and you want to keep going, and I can see it from all the questions you're asking, how do I go beyond this? How do I learn this more advanced thing? That's amazing. I'm loving these questions. Then your next stage is to become a certified formulator. And your next stage is to formulate your future. And tomorrow we open up enrollment for our International Organic Skincare Entrepreneur Program, which is the only program in the world that takes you from complete beginner to formulator and entrepreneur. How cool is that? You could go to university and spend 10 times, 20 times that amount, and you still won't come out with that education. And we have it. It's the flagship program we teach. It's won awards. It is the best thing that we have, and it will get you to where you want to be. And tomorrow morning, UK time, we open up enrollment for it. And we'll be welcoming the first students within literally, the next 15 hours or so. I'm so excited, and I know the team is too. And if that sounds like your bag, and if you've taken part in this masterclass and you think that is your next step, then don't hesitate. Take action tomorrow. This will change your life completely. And you could be working through your first modules within, the first week. By the end of this week, you could have completed your first lessons already, have placed the order for your ingredients, and be getting ready to make not just one eye cream, but an entire range of skincare, cleansers, toners, lotions, balms, bars, butters, everything. Your entire lab at home, your little mini lab, could be covered in the formulations that you've made. So that is within your reach. And I wish that for you, because otherwise you wouldn't be here in the masterclass. So
exactly. And all those things, that was a fantastic summary. Yeah. And all those things Lorraine has just listed. Just behind Lorraine, just on this level here, you can see a range of products. They are all of our graduate products that get sent to Lorraine. Yeah. But it's not just products she's collecting. Those are students of ours that have created products, sellable products worldwide. And that's just a selection. if you go onto our graduates page, there's a lot more. And the counter above actually shows our global community. That is how many students we have studying formulation right now for the last decade. It is absolutely amazing. So as Lorraine says, please join our webinar tomorrow, because we've more than ever in this Q&A, we've been seeing so many questions from people that really do obviously want to take it to that next step. So if you do, that is definitely where you want to be, because you're going to get the 3 secrets, you're going to get the blueprint just right there from Lorraine. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So I want to see most of you on this Q&A joining us for our webinar tomorrow. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Brooke. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Thank you so much to everybody for your participation, for your questions, for joining in and just letting us know that you love the masterclass. I can see everyone is just loving it, so it's fantastic. And hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.
Yep. See you all soon. Enjoy lesson 10.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.